So hello again and welcome. Thank you all for being here for Lunch and Learn session 6. Today we're going to be talking about cannabis research for pain. My name is Riley and I'm a study coordinator at the Health Equity Corps. Our mission is to improve the quality of pain care by elevating the voices of patient communities in research, as well as raising awareness about health inequities and community needs. Together, myself, our director Rachel, and our project manager Vivian work to bring events like this to the community. So if you have any questions or just want to talk, please feel free to reach out to one of us. Thank you all for being here via Zoom. If you have any questions, as I mentioned before we started the recording, please feel free to drop them in the chat and we will have opportunities for Q&A throughout. Just a little background about the Health Equity Corps. It's a group within the Chronic Pain and Fatigue Research Center, which is a world-renowned research center at the University of Michigan, made up of investigators and clinicians who study the mechanisms and most effective treatments for chronic pain and fatigue, including conditions that have chronic pain and fatigue as core symptoms. Some of the center's aims are to improve the understanding and management of chronic pain conditions, as well as provide current evidence-based information to the public through events like this. Just a quick disclaimer before we get started. The content of this presentation is for informational purposes only and does not substitute professional medical advice or consultations with healthcare professionals. I also realized I forgot to introduce my coworker, Jen, who is on the call as well. She'll be presenting with me today. And Tiffany Lee is on the call as well. She's part of our team and she'll be helping to monitor the chat. So first, let's get into some background about medical cannabis and how it relates to chronic pain. So medical cannabis is legal in 38 of 50 US states. And the most common use is for chronic pain. So chronic pain has low remission rates and is associated with poorer quality of life and suicide-related outcomes. It can also lead to unnecessary surgeries and opioid use and misuse, which can further exacerbate pain symptoms. There are many different administration routes for medical cannabis, other than smoking, which is one that is maybe most familiar to people, including things like gummies, edibles, tinctures, topicals, like lotions. There are over 100 known components of cannabis. The two most commonly known are THC, which is psychoactive, meaning that it gets you high. And CBD is another well-known one, and that one is non-psychoactive, which means it does not get you high. Both are reported to have positive effects on pain and inflammation. If you're interested in learning more about the evidence base for cannabis for chronic pain, we are going to have another Lunch and Learn on November 14th, where Dr. Kevin Banke, who is a cannabis and chronic pain researcher, will be delving into that topic more as well. Currently, there is still limited physician support for those that are interested in using medical cannabis for pain, and there are no FDA-approved cannabis products for chronic pain. I have a nice little graph here that kind of shows the overall increase in medical cannabis licenses among US adults from 2016 to 2022. As you can see, it's a very consistent and significant increase. And again, the most common reason by far that people report for getting these medical cannabis licenses, is for chronic pain. So despite this increasing use of medical cannabis for chronic pain management in the general population and among US veterans, which happen to be the population that was focused on for the research we'll be talking about today, the categorization of cannabis as a Schedule I drug has led to inadequate research studies on it, creating a gap in knowledge related to the efficacy and application of medical cannabis in treating chronic pain. So part of the aim of the studies we'll be discussing today were to help fill this gap in research. So today we wanted to share with you some of the research that the CPFRC Chronic Pain and Fatigue Research Center has recently done about using cannabis for pain management. These studies are part of My Vets Can, which is a group of several research studies funded by the State of Michigan Veteran Marijuana Research Grant Program. This money was earmarked by the state of Michigan for cannabis research around chronic pain in veterans. Veterans have very high rates of chronic pain that is poorly managed, which is part of the rationale for setting aside this money specifically for veteran research looking at cannabis for chronic pain. So although these studies are specific to veterans, we hope they will inform cannabis research in other populations and prove interesting to anyone wanting to learn more about how cannabis can be used to manage chronic pain. For those joining us, just so you know, the meeting is being recorded. So if you wouldn't like your video shown in the recording, feel free to turn off your camera. Thank you for being here. Okay, so we're going to talk to you about two studies today. The first one is called How Veterans with Chronic Pain Approach Using Cannabis for Symptom Management, results from a qualitative study. And the second one that Jen will be discussing is feasibility of a novel coaching intervention to optimize cannabis use for veterans with chronic pain. So for both of these studies, we'd like to acknowledge the contributions of study participants, as well as members of our Community Advisory Board of Veterans who helped inform the research at every step of the way. So I'll be talking to you about an interview study we did with veterans, looking at how they approach cannabis for chronic pain. We chose to do an interview study or a qualitative approach where we're getting verbal answers from participants because that's a really good way to build an understanding of how processes function at an individual level and capture more details of how veterans are already using cannabis for chronic pain. And we think this is a critical step to understand the potential of cannabis to treat chronic pain overall. A qualitative approach like this also prioritizes the voices of participants and giving them an opportunity to share their stories and perspectives. And it's also great for developing a more community-driven research study, which is what we're all about at the Health Equity Corps. So in this study, we aim to characterize how veterans approach new and continued use of cannabis for chronic pain using a qualitative approach. So on this slide, you can see the recruitment flyer that was used for the study. We obtained a sample of US veterans who were adults with chronic pain that either used cannabis, planned to use cannabis, or were interested in learning about it. Volunteers for the study gave an hour-long recorded interview over Zoom to share their personal experiences. We had a semi-structured interview guide that was tailored to cannabis use status. So there were different questions depending on if somebody was a current cannabis user as opposed to somebody who's just interested in using. And the questions asked about participants' perceptions of cannabis research, as well as their experience and knowledge of cannabis. And we also captured social risk factors in the interview as well. Participants received $25 for their participation in the interview. So the sample we ended up with consisted of 32 veterans with chronic pain, 23 of whom were currently using cannabis for their pain, and 9 who were planning to. Their average time since concluding active duty was 23 years, and the age range was 28 to 76 years. So, using the interviews that we collected from these 32 veterans, we analyzed the data and all their responses and came up with 5 main themes. These are currently unpublished and under peer review, but we are working to getting them published in an academic journal. So the first theme that we developed based on these veteran interviews was the value for health and well-being. And so this is where veterans talked about the comprehensive benefits of cannabis for their health and well-being, as well as concerns due to adverse effects like intoxication, smelling like cannabis, dependency, or harms to respiratory health from smoked products. The benefits of cannabis use described in this category included both physical and mental health benefits. One participant stated, "When my memory started coming back, and then when my son died, my pain level went sky high because that psychological pain wrapped up the physical on top of all that I was dealing with. I was at the point where I had to use marijuana. I wouldn't be here if I had a gun and I didn't have marijuana." The second theme that we developed from these interviews was developing a treatment approach where participants talked about how there was limited evidence and clinical guidance to inform how they approached using cannabis for pain, and instead they had to rely on alternative sources of information, such as their social networks or the internet. Participants specifically talked about the need to experiment with cannabis in order to limit the negative side effects while maximizing the benefits of cannabis. For instance, one participant said, "The only way to really know how effective it's going to be is to try it and use it and develop your own dosages and routine with it." Our third theme was obtaining products, where participants talked about how sourcing cannabis was complicated by legalization, cost, and safety concerns. In particular, participants expressed concern about affording cannabis products. One participant said, "I use cannabis sparingly because you don't know when you're going to be able to find it again to buy and from a reputable, safe person. And believe me, when you get down to a little bit, you just save it. You just save it until it's an emergency because you can't waste it on funny games." Our fourth theme was encountering restrictions, stigma, and acceptance, where participants talked about the varying degrees of consequences and acceptance they faced from their social networks related to their cannabis use. And this impacted their decisions to disclose their cannabis use, both in their personal lives and to their healthcare providers. One participant said, "My doctor knows that I use it, but previous to it being legalized, I wouldn't tell him I used it. Even to this day, a doctor will ask you, and I bet you 50 to 60% still say no because they don't want it in their medical record. If it's in your medical record, now you might have to worry about being able to own a firearm, and you might have to worry about a job or anything." The final theme that we developed from these veteran interviews was desiring more research. Specifically, participants wanted research to inform safety and treatment protocols around cannabis for pain, improve access to cannabis products, as well as reduce stigma surrounding the use of cannabis. On this topic, one participant stated, "I think that the use of cannabis should be accessible to all veterans just because I've seen the benefit from it. So anything that I can do, like participating in research to help push that to get nationwide across all VAs, would be great." So all in all, we noticed that throughout these interviews, veterans were describing factors across multiple domains that influenced how they approach medical cannabis use. So on an individual level, the veterans' cannabis use was impacted by their willingness to experiment, the roles and responsibilities in their life, like if they have kids or a job, desire to avoid stigma, ability to afford and make products. On a social network level, veterans' cannabis use was impacted by the level of emotional support and acceptance in their social networks, as well as the level of cannabis-related knowledge and experiences in their social networks, as that determined how much knowledge they had to draw from their social networks and ultimately influenced their approach to medical cannabis use. On a healthcare level, factors like the limited evidence base for the clinical applications of cannabis influenced veterans' approach to cannabis use, as well as the response that participants got from healthcare providers, some being, extremely negative and some being more positive. On a policy level, things like the federal and state legalization of cannabis came into play. The limited regulation of product manufacturing, people having concerns about the quality of the cannabis they're buying, and also barriers to hiring and job security, people concerned about, not being able to get a job or keep their job if they, disclose their cannabis use or start using cannabis. So just factors across multiple domains were talked about in the interviews. So what conclusions did we draw from all this very rich data that we collected? Overall, these interviews highlighted the potential value of cannabis for veterans with chronic pain, while also showing the many obstacles and limitations that remain. So these results also uncover opportunities to improve pain care and patient-provider communication about medical cannabis. And with cannabis potentially being rescheduled to a less restricted category of drugs, we're hopeful that more research will be done to continue to investigate cannabis as a pain treatment option. The themes and findings from this study also informed protocol development for our other projects examining the potential of cannabis to treat chronic pain among veterans. For example, findings from this study helped to tailor an educational intervention for veterans around cannabis for chronic pain, which Jen will be presenting on shortly. Before Jen hops into this next study, were there any questions about the veteran interview study I just went over, or comments? Feel free to drop them in the chat, or you can unmute. And we'll also
how can someone go about participating the next time you have this?
That's a great question. Thank you. So the particular study I just discussed is completed. However, at the end of this presentation, we will be showcasing the studies the CPFRC has going on right now for veterans with chronic pain, looking at cannabis products as a treatment. So there are ongoing studies that we will touch on at the end. And how to get involved with those studies will be covered as well. Thank you for your question. Anything else? Okay, I'm gonna pass the screen share over to Jen.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can everyone hear me? All right, just make sure the
yes, you're good.
Technology is working. And let me see if we can get this to work as well. Can everyone see my slide as well?
Yes, but not in presentation mode yet.
Oh, well, it's showing it in presentation mode on my end. So let's see. I'm not the most technically savvy person, so give me a second here. Let's try. No. Yes, no, still not presentation mode. Huge. Yep. This one. Okay. That one. Try. Riley's helping me. I think it's just. There we go. She got it. All right. Okay, so the interview study that Riley just talked about helped to inform this study that we did next, which was a feasibility study that utilized coaching sessions to help veterans optimize using cannabis on their own to manage their chronic pain. Let's see if I can get my slides. Here we go. So is that showing the right slide, Riley? Give me a thumbs up.
Yes.
Okay, just make sure.
Objective.
Yep, perfect. Okay, so we wanted to develop and pilot a coaching intervention to optimize medical cannabis use for veterans with chronic pain, as I mentioned. We were most interested to know if the results of this feasibility study, feasibility being like we wanted to test this out and see how feasible was this coaching intervention gonna be warrant like implementing this in a larger size of participants, as well as we wanted to identify if we needed to make any changes or adjustments for a larger study going forward. Oh. Keep going. Okay. And then we also were interested to know were the participants satisfied with the coaching sessions? Did they find them helpful? That sort of thing. So when we were creating this coaching intervention, the investigators looked at the current scientific literature on medical cannabis. We also consulted with medical cannabis experts and worked with a community advisory board, also called a CAB, that was made up of veterans, and they helped us to plan the intervention. Get a little bit more into that later. And then we also used a technique that's called motivational interviewing. And this helps to create like a conversational partnership between the health coaches and the participants. So during the sessions, the health coaches inform the participants about the wide range of cannabis products that are available to us now, and went a little bit deeper into, educating people on cannabis. And then the participant would tell the coach about all their pain symptoms and lifestyle restrictions they might have. So for instance, someone might not want to feel high, or maybe they don't want to smoke, so they're interested in an alternative. So they would discuss all those things and then together come up with a individualized plan so that participant could go and purchase some products, try them out, reconvening and troubleshoot that kind of a thing. So the components of our intervention, we really wanted everything to be easily accessible for people, regardless of where they live and everything. So our study was completely remote. We use an app for the phone to track any pain-related symptoms such as sleep, fatigue, pain levels, of course, and then logging cannabis use. They had up to 4 remote sessions with their coach via Zoom, and then we provided our participants with a Fitbit in order for us to gather that passive data about steps and sleep, heart rate, that kind of data. So the study design kind of looks like this. Their participants began with a baseline survey, and then they continue to receive surveys through the app after each coaching session. And those sessions were 2 weeks apart. And then they completed one final follow-up survey at week 14, which was a 6-week gap between their final coaching session and that final follow-up survey. They also continued to complete the daily assessments that I mentioned before to track their pain, cannabis use, and then wore the Fitbit throughout the duration, so the full 14 weeks. We recruited veterans living in Michigan that were adults over 18 with chronic pain. And then we didn't require participants to be cannabis users entering the study. They just needed to be interested in potentially using it, learning about it for their pain. And they also needed to be willing and able to download that study app, participate in the Zoom visits, do the surveys via their phone, and then be comfortable with wearing that Fitbit for the duration. So as we had more than one health coach conducting these coaching sessions, we wanted to make sure that there was consistency and accuracy of the information across all of the participants. So this is something called fidelity, and we accomplished this by, we recorded the Zoom sessions, and then they were transcribed, which is somebody got to write down everything everyone said, and then 20% of that information was then looked at for adherence to the motivational interviewing techniques as well as the cannabis content to try to ensure that people were receiving the same thing across the board, regardless of health coach. So just a couple graphics here with some of the findings. Out of 22 participants, 17 of them completed all 4 of the coaching sessions. We had some that completed 2 or 3, but of those 17, everyone reported satisfaction with the intervention. So we didn't have anyone that said they weren't satisfied or they were just somewhat satisfied. So everyone was satisfied to some degree. And then this figure shows that all of the participants found the coaching to be very helpful. Again, nobody reported that it was not helpful. And what you're seeing here between the blue and the green is survey results from week 8, which is that last coaching visit. And then week 14 is that final follow-up visit that took place 6 weeks later. So people's answers changed a little bit across that 6 weeks, but everyone still found it to be helpful. And then this figure just shows self-reported pain improvements. So again, everyone reported improvement in, sorry, let me back up. That's incorrect. Let me look at my notes. 60% of participants self-reported that their pain was either much improved or very much improved. So that's the green and the blue. And then the gray here is people that reported minimally improved. So yes, everyone reported some level of improvement, and which is a clinically significant finding. And then we didn't have anyone who reported no improvement or any kind of worsening of their pain. So in conclusion, we did find that after analyzing the data, people were generally satisfied with the intervention, found it to be helpful, felt like their pain was significantly improved. We also saw some substantial improvements in pain symptoms. So we did ask questions regarding how their pain interfered with their daily life, to what degree. And so people did find an improvement of that pain interference, as well as they felt that their social satisfaction had improved because their pain decreased and it allowed them to have more social activity. And then we didn't find any significant effects in some other domains. Most importantly, we were concerned about sleep and also suicidal ideation. Those are things that people get a little bit concerned with THC and CBD, that those might be affected in a negative way. And that was not what we found so far, that there wasn't a significant change in those things. So as Riley mentioned, we do, those were kind of the first two steps that informed larger clinical trials, which we are in the midst of conducting. So this coaching intervention that I just described is now known as Can Coach. We began this trial this past spring, and it has a target number of participants of 468. So a significant increase from the 22 that we tried things out on. And the study is open to any veteran with chronic pain who is living in a state with legal recreational cannabis. If you want to know why, we can get into that later. And the goal that we have here is to reduce harm and maximize the benefit for veterans and their pain. We also hope that this could one day be like a scalable program that could be used widely with healthcare providers, bud tenders, which are the dispensary staff, so that they can be a little more educated on cannabis use relating to pain. So we actually have 3 studies going on right now, one of which is the coaching that's at the end. So we start everyone in what is called the Veterans Pain Registry. This is our entry point. This is a more longer term observational study where people are tracking their pain and pain symptoms as well as their cannabis use. And then once they're active in the registry, the other studies kind of run in tandem with it. So we do have CBD Care, which we are recruiting for currently, which is a small clinical drug trial in which people receive either a CBD tincture or a placebo tincture, and then we compare those effects, and then as well as the full educational coaching intervention that we already described. So just a little more in depth about our community advisory board here. As we mentioned, these studies were informed by our CAB. This was a board of veterans living with chronic pain, as well as some veteran community-based organizations, healthcare providers, pain researchers, and policymakers, such as the Cannabis Regulatory Agency here in Michigan. And they were all involved at every stage of study development to help, give that input and help us prioritize the veteran community while doing these studies. As Riley mentioned earlier, that's kind of what the Health Equity Core is all about. We want to make sure that the people we are involving in research are also involved in creating the research. So that's a little bit about that. And then, as someone asked earlier, here is some contact information. If you happen to be a veteran or you know someone who's a veteran that might be interested in participating, they can give us a call at this number, and Riley or myself or one of our other coordinators will speak to them about the study. They can also shoot us an email. MyVetsCan is the study name. And let us know some contact information, and we will reach out to them. And our website is also listed here in case anyone wants to go to that site and get a little bit more information there as well. And hopefully Tiffany can drop that link in the chat, so it's something that you could just click on if you wanted to look at that website. Anyone have any questions at the moment?
Hi, I did have a question.
Great.
I was wondering about how long has the Health Equity Corps been around? I was
That is
trying to find that information and I was
sure.
curious. I was asked the people involved.
Yeah, that's a great question. Maybe Riley, do you have an answer for that one? Because she's more closely involved with that
I don't have
research.
an answer off the top of my head, but what I will do is go to our website and see if I can find an answer.
I know that I started in April of 2023. It was already like decently established by the time I started, but I feel like it was still relatively new is kind of my gut feeling, but
Yeah, I don't see anything listed on the website, but in the past couple years, I know that's
yeah,
not very specific at all.
Right.
I agree. I don't think it's like 5 years, 10 years, it's probably
Right.
in the range of 2 or 3 years would be my guess, but we can definitely get you a specific answer.
I honestly, I'm a student over at Eastern and I absolutely love what you're doing here. I'm interested. I'm a social work student. I'm interested in
Awesome.
working with chronic pain patients. So this is like right up my alley. I was really excited to see you offering this today, and I appreciate your time. And I was wondering, I know that there's emails on the website and everything, but if I were to want to reach out to either of you to ask a couple follow-up questions, if I think of something, would that
Definitely.
be okay?
Yeah, let's chat and see how we love to
Okay,
collaborate. So
wonderful.
definitely maybe Tiffany's on here somewhere. Maybe she can drop Riley and myself our email in the chat for you.
I
Thank
will
you
go
guys.
ahead and
And
drop my
or
email and
Riley
feel
can
free
do
to
it.
reach out to me.
Okay, Riley,
We
thank
will
you.
take care of you for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
I think, do we have anything in the chat? Doesn't look like it. Okay. Any other questions, comments, something you loved, something you didn't? We're open to all feedback. Okay. So just a little housekeeping at the end here. Our next session is in 2 weeks on Thursday, the 24th, same time. This one will be in person and online. Tiffany did put that link there for registration in the chat, and we're really excited about this one. We're going to have Cooking with Q, if anyone is familiar, and she's going to be talking about how your diet and nutrition can contribute or help with your pain. She's also going to feed us that day. So we do encourage in-person attendance at the Detroit Center so we can sample her food and give her a nice in-person audience. But if you can't come in person, you can definitely still join us on Zoom. We will have that available as well. And then the one after that, which will be November 14th, Riley mentioned earlier, will be Kevin Begke. He is one of the researchers here at the center with us, and he is a primary investigator on the studies that we've already spoken about. So he's very knowledgeable in cannabis and chronic pain. And so he's going to give a great presentation about that on that in about a month. So again, in person, actually, Riley, have we decided? Oh, it says right here in front of my face, Zoom only. There we go. Online only for this one. I think we're going to do a little more online through the winter just for ease for people. And then we still have our yoga therapy series going. If anyone has attended those already, people seem to be really enjoying them. We're doing those on the first Saturday of the month. So we have one coming up November 2nd and then December 7th. That's what we have through the end of the year. And then we'll see how planning goes from there on. But yoga therapy is a little bit different than regular yoga. We do she considers your pain and abilities to move and different things. A lot of it is seated, so it's not don't be intimidated is I guess what I'm trying to say. They're great, and we would love for you to join us in person at the Detroit Center for yoga. And we have a lupus conference coming up this Saturday. But it's still time to join up. Again, that'll be virtual and in person at Detroit Center. If you come in person, we feed you lunch, and we're going to have some great speakers regarding lupus, as well as like lived experience, and you can see all the different types of speakers. So if you have lupus or interested, you know someone, care for someone, we'd love to have you for that. And then one final thing here, we have a veteran pain conference. This will be our first one. It's coming up on November 16th, also virtual and in person at the Detroit Center. We'll have a lot of different topics relating to pain and pain-related issues in veterans, also in person. I probably said it already, but also in person and online. And if you come in person, we will again also feed you and have some resource tables and various things. So that's what we've got going on. Tiffany has kindly dropped all those links in the chat. If you want to click on any of them and register for any of the events, that's awesome. And I guess just finally, do we have any questions? Any comments, any concerns? Everyone feeling good today? Give me a thumbs up. All right, yeah. Okay, great. Well, it was nice to see everyone. We had some great attendance today. Appreciate it a lot. And if you think of any questions later, feel free to reach out to us, and we're happy to find the answers. And we'll leave you guys a little bit early today, and hopefully see you at one of our events coming up. So
Thank you,
thank you so
everyone.
much. Thank
Jennifer,
you.
can you plug your email in for me?
I sure can, Sarah. Let me do that right now.
Thank you
And we'll
guys again, and have
also,
a good weekend.
yes, you too,
Thank
Sarah.
you.
We'll also be sending the recording and the slides for anyone who missed anything or is interested in reviewing that. We'll be sending a follow-up email.
Yay, thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Great. Have a good day,
Bye.
everybody.